What's up, everybody? Well, I got a little bit different video for you guys today, and today I kind of just had the idea, why don't I take 3 of the games that I thought kind of ran the shittiest out of all the games I've tested in 2025 so far. Now, does that mean, no, that doesn't mean I think they're bad games by any means. In fact, besides one of them, I actually enjoy both of them quite a bit. Like, I enjoyed this Outer Worlds 2. It seems pretty fun. I mean, I'd say that I enjoyed the first one like around a 6.5. This one also feels around like a 6.5 so far, but I haven't beaten it yet, so I'm gonna reserve rating it till I do. I enjoyed the next one we're gonna do after this, which was Borderlands 4. Probably had some updates, so I'm sure it got a little better than when I tested it. But I think the worst offender so far that I've still tested to this day is still Monster Hunter Wilds. And I thought, to spice things up, instead of just testing it out on a crazy-ass computer that 99.9% of people aren't gonna have, I'd also test it out on a handheld, one that's extraordinarily similar to that new Xbox handheld that just came out. A little slower, but very similar performance, like 8 to 10 FPS behind in most tests that I've seen so far. But anyway, and then we'll also test it out on like a mid-range laptop. I'd do it on a mid-range desktop, but truth be told, I don't really have any mid-range desktop. All mine are either high-end or enthusiast level. So that's pretty much the idea for the video. So I figured we'd get started on the weakest thing, the Asus Ally X, and then we'd go from there and work our way up. So let's go get started, shall we?
So here's the settings I decided to go with. Pretty much the same as what I did when I made the video. I just cranked one thing, textures up to high, since most of the time, this isn't always, but it usually doesn't eat up too much FPS so long as you have the VRAM. So there might be an FPS or two by toning that down. But regardless, let's go hop in. Let's see what it can do. This is under spec, obviously, so I'm not expecting it to do great. So here we are in the game. And it does not look very fantastic all blown up like this, that's for sure. But it really doesn't look that bad on the actual screen itself. But I didn't want to do any camera recorded gameplay in this video. Okay, that's pretty funny. It takes it a second to load in the textures of the guns there. But like I said, this thing is under the minimum specs, so really can't even expect it to run at all. But it actually gets somewhat playable FPS, to be honest. I mean, I would rather get 60 plus if I was going to play a game like this, but if I was going out on the road and I didn't want to take one of my massive laptops, I could play a little bit like this. I'm not even good with controllers, but I could still play and have fun. Now, later on in the game, maybe I'd find spots that with these settings it runs like absolute shit and goes all the way down to like under 20, but considering again that this is under minimum spec by quite a bit, it's not doing as bad as I would have thought. But that's why I think this one's probably the most optimized out of the 3 games I'm going to test today. I mean, this game even ran alright-ish on the Steam Deck. Borderlands 4 wasn't really that great on that when I tested it, and Monster Hunter Wilds was basically unplayable. I mean, not like Borderlands 4 that thing wasn't very playable either, but I think that could still like get sometimes 30, 40 FPS, but still had its times where it dropped into the 20s. And maybe even the teens, if I remember correctly. So yeah, obviously the frame times are not spectacular. And you're falling, we can't even really hit with these settings, we can't even hit the VRR, unfortunately. Now if you're okay with it looking quite a bit worse, you can try turning performance upscaling on, but this seems like one of those games where you get CPU bottlenecked and it doesn't really do any good after a point. That's why I just left it on quality. Or was it balanced? One of the two. I think performance puts you down to like 360p or something like that, which is a little low. Anyway though, that's just about enough of that. Why don't we go ahead and move on over to the next game. So here's the settings I've decided to go with on Borderlands 4 here on this system. Again, under minimum spec, so not expecting much. In fact, I'd be surprised if it got playable FPS at all, but if I remember correctly, it was at least getting somewhat playable FPS. Most people consider that 30 plus. Me, I like 60 to be the minimum, but hey, I am at least reasonable. I know that on these handhelds, that's almost never a thing. At least not in new games. So here we are in the game. And this one can't quite match the FPS of the Outer Worlds 2. But at least most of the time it stays at pretty playable 30 plus. I think there's a couple times it might drop under 30 here and there, especially if you go everywhere in the whole game. But at least here, we drop down like 33 or whatever. Now, I don't normally talk during these screen recorded portions anymore in my normal videos, but I figured for this, might as well. Alright, that is not the fast travel thing. Alright, that's the one I would have wanted, I think, but screw it. I think there's a door to get out of here somewhere. Is it this one? Nope, I don't think so. Oh, door. Where's the door I want? There we go. It got me what I wanted. I wanted to get outside, too. I mean, I'd prefer to even get into a little fight here and there. I wanted to fight stuff in the Outer Worlds, too, but I didn't really find anything. I think I killed everything in the search of ammo. I went and shot too much inaccurately while making the gameplay videos on all my systems, and then had no ammo when I went to go play the game for Rio, and I was like, ah, shit. Even when I was trying to finish my videos up, I'm pretty sure I had like no ammo and kept dying, and it was embarrassing, but it is what it is. At least in this one, if I die, as long as I can kill something, I can get myself back to life. That's half of what I did to get through this damn game. Man, it just barely scrapes by. And I mean, you might be able to get a little bit more FPS if you make it look like absolute garbage, but what I do with these is, if I can't get 60, I figure I might as well try to at least get as much good graphics as I can without it dropping way under 30. See, it's still dropped down to 28, so like I said, there's still going to be some spots where it's going to probably drop under 30 for a second or two, but... Alright, here we go. Let's see what happens when we fight. Ah, I fucked that up. I'm terrible with controllers. Hey, I hit him that time. I knocked him down. Oh, they're pissed now. Ah, shot you in the face again. I keep shooting you. Oh shit, I forgot. You're the one that jumps from 8 miles away. Still seems to stay right around that. Now, if we got swarmed by like 30 of these people, it might start dropping. Oh yeah, I was using a fucking fire weapon on the fire guy. I didn't even notice it at first. I was like, what the fuck? Why isn't he dying? Well, duh. Well, now that I'm watching myself back, that answers myself that question. Oh, yes, indeed. There we go. And with that, we move on. Alright, here's the settings I went with this one, and pretty much no matter what I did, it kind of like runs like garbage on this thing because we're, again, under minimum spec, but I feel like this one runs the worst out of all of them that we tested on this thing. Like, the others were just barely passable, but this thing is just like, I don't think too many people would have very much fun playing on here. I mean, you can maybe get a couple more FPS back by like turning a couple settings down, but I already had things pretty low. So. And then some people would say it had frame jam, but I don't know. I hate that when it's, especially when it's at such low FPS already. It had so much input lag, at least in my opinion anyway. But hey, let's get into the game. So here we go. We're in the game. And at least in town anyway, it drops. I ran around a little bit while messing about, and it definitely still dropped under, down to like 26, 25 here and there. And I think we even drop when we go out here into the outside. A lot of times in these games, the towns are the hardest to run. But at least in this, everything is hard to run for this thing. But doesn't meet minimum specs, can't be too surprised, can I? Yeah, see 23. And it's not like it's a looker right now. It's not like any other games looked fantastic on this thing either, but they definitely, at least in my opinion, looked much, much better than this. And just in fact, I just think both of the other two games look better than this no matter what, even on a super high-end computer, which we will get to. I just figured start on the slowest, like under minimum spec thing first, because a lot of people like handhelds now. So I figured, might as well test it, right? But neither of these, this nor the Steam Deck, ever really do very good with most like crazy graphics AAA titles or unoptimized things like this. they can't really brute force their way through like some of the higher end PCs can. But with this one, I'm just like, they should have made their own engine for this game by now. They're using the RE engine, which is great for a linear game like Resident Evil. Those games generally don't have like huge stutters, and they can actually look pretty halfway decent, I think. But when you try and make that engine do a big, wide open world game like this, it goes, no. And they definitely have enough money and know that the game was popular. They could have just made the Monster Hunter engine by now. Who knows? Maybe they still will. Give them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, see, this is just it's not doing very good on the FPS. Now, some people could still play like this, no problem. I've had people tell me, no, I play like that, no problem. And hey, that's cool. I just can't do it. Like, it was alright getting you guys some footage, but I could not play this particular game on this thing. I think I'd have to just leave that to my home computers, even if I was on a trip and wanted to play on here. Or use some way of remote playing from a better PC, which is something you can also do. But that usually is, for me, feels kind of like turning frame gen on. At this point, I forgot how to stop on this guy, so I was just running around like an absolute idiot. But anyway, I'd say that's probably more than good. Why don't we go ahead and move on over to the more mid-range system that actually does meet minimum specs, and recommended in most cases.
Well, alright, real quick, I figured since we couldn't really bring this giant mammoth thing over into the shot at the beginning of the video, I just figured I'd show you the mid-range system real quick. I mean, it's high-end in price, but mid-range in performance GPU-wise, I think it sits right around or right in between like 7800 XT, which isn't a bad GPU by any means, but it's not an insane powerhouse that can play every game at 4K. And this thing was like $3,000 or some stupid shit. Still, honestly, when I first got it, I was pretty annoyed because it did a bunch of funky things. Still not as bad as what happened to some people, but still some funky things nonetheless. Anyway though, it's got like one of those 16 core processors, 32 cores or 36 threads, something crazy like that. 64 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte hard drive, and the 7900M is, like I said, similar to a 7800 XT, but it does have 16 gigs of VRAM, so that's pretty nice. And yeah, that's pretty much that. We're gonna play at 1440p on this OLED screen, 240 hertz. It's got G-Sync, FreeSync, all that shit. Very nice screen for the like $699 I paid for it. Same exact screen that they put in the $1,000 monitors. It's made by the company that makes LG's panels and a bunch of other OLED panels. But anyway, enough blabbery. Let's go and see how a more mid-range system can handle these games.
So here are the settings I decided to go with on the mid-range laptop here. I really wished I could have gotten away with high settings with native, but little quality upscaling isn't the worst thing ever on 1440p, and we're not using FSR. I mean, I really wish this thing could use FSR 4, but without using Optiscaler, which I don't usually do in videos like this, I just can't do that. So now here we are in the game, and I'm using OBS to record, so I'm sure that does suck up an FPS or two. But definitely getting more than playable FPS. And the game looks alright, but for, you know, just high settings and stuff with upscaling, you would expect a little bit more FPS, at least I would for a game that looks like this, but it still looks more than alright. I don't know, I just noticed a lot of these games, you'd think a game like this would be getting like 140 FPS on a system like this with upscaling. This is about what I'd expect with no upscaling, you know? But hey, what I expect and what I want is two different things. Well, but see, it still looks very nice. And it doesn't have too awful many giant stutters. I have noticed whenever I run into this town for the first time, like there's black blotches that show up like on everything I've ran in here on. At least I think so. Let's see. I guess it didn't happen on this thing. Unless it did while I was like thinking about it and just didn't notice it. Yeah, see, it still even drops down to almost under 60 in some spots here, so if you want to make sure you stay over 60, and it might not even be possible, you'd have to drop the upscaling down a little bit, but you don't want to go too far, or you'll start getting into CPU bottleneck situations. I mean, this thing's got a pretty powerful CPU, but if this is one of those games that just maxes out one of your cores, it doesn't really matter how many cores you have. At that point, it only really cares about single core performance. And even if you have a strong single core, a lot of those games just add lots of stutters in games I've noticed from all my testing in these years. Yeah, wish I could have found some battles in this game, but I just did not. But anyway, let us move on along.
Well, alright, I wanted to do this whole video super professional and not have to do any camera recorded gameplay, but I forgot. Borderlands 4 seems to hate OBS, so I could not get it to give me pictures. Nothing but black screen, no audio, no picture, no nothing. So it is what it is. At least this way there's nothing in the background taking up any performance. So here's the settings I've decided to run. It might not be perfect, but that's what I decided to run. Pay no attention to the graphics preset. I just ended up going down to low, I think, when I did the actual video for this thing. But here's the settings I decided on. Again, they might not be perfect, but with the upscaling, I couldn't really get good results on this thing without upscaling. Same thing with almost anything. I don't think anything I play today will not need upscaling. It's just the way it is. So I think with that all said, let's go get a little gameplay. So here we are in game. I could so totally probably make that. I'm gonna totally do it. Ah, shoot. You know what? So bad with controllers. Are you really trying to shoot me through the damn level? How dare you? Hello. Where be you? Alright, screw this. Switch into keyboard and mouse. I'm standing here, so I'm still going to be horrible, but I think I can do a little bit better. Lots of criticals. Where are you? Alright, screw this.
Enter the darkness.
Where are you? Aha! Yeah, see, it still has a little bit of stutters. What in the hell are you doing? There you go, I helped him. Anyway, I think that's probably more than good. Let's move on.
Alright. At least this game seems to be working, and here's the specs for the thing, for those curious. I couldn't remember the CPU name and stuff. But I used Intel's upscaler, because upscaling again was just necessary. I'd love to not use it at 1440, but we still needed it. And we'll try quality first, and if we really need to drop it, like it's drop it down to 30 FPS or something when we get into actually moving around, which I ran around a little bit, and I don't remember it doing that, but sometimes games love to owe me in the face. I'll be like, oh yeah, it runs fine, and then it'll stutter. Like, yeah, okay, thanks, game. Thanks for making me look like an ass. But anyway, go down the rest of these settings real quick here, and hell with that, it's time to get into the game. Alright, here we are in the game, and this is the game that's really hard to stay at 60, at least in town. Once you get out of the town, I think it does an okay-ish job, at least in this beginning area. I haven't been able to get very far, because social anxiety and all that stuff. These kind of online-based games are not really my forte, but people wanted to see how it ran, so I grabbed it. It sucks, too, because it's a fun game. In my head, I already know I would go and try to fight stuff. I'd suck, so I'd hold everybody back, and I'd think everybody's like, oh my god, Vicious sucks, blah, 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 and that just doesn't make games fun for me, so I just avoid that. Anyway, though, I think, like, obviously this isn't the worst-looking game known to man, but out of the 3 we tested, I don't know, I think it looks the worst out of all of them, especially for its subpar performance. It seems to look the worst and perform worse than all of them. And it's not like hey, we're going to put this thing with ray tracing on in the highest possible settings you could possibly have to try to make it look bad. No. In fact, I've just used the same kind of higher settings I did on everything else. I'm trying to do the opposite. I've seen a lot of people try to hate on this game and, like, they'll purposely make it look bad. Like, use the lowest settings and all this stuff. It's like, see? Look how bad it is. And it's like, you don't got to do all that. You can put that thing maxed out and compare it to other games maxed out, and it still doesn't look that fantastic compared to them. You don't have to lie. But hey, that's not really what Monster Hunter games have all been about either, is like supreme graphics. But hey, in my personal opinion, if your game's going to run at this low FPS, this is like running worse than like Crysis would be running right now. Like I could go do Crysis Remastered and I'd probably get like 100 FPS on the same system. Or I could go play Red Dead Redemption, probably maxed out and get, again, like 110 FPS on these same screen high settings, maybe not maxed out, but... And those games just look way better, even though they're older. And then Cyberpunk runs better, too, and it's getting up there in age now. I think, that's a 4-year-old game now? But even it looks pretty damn good, and that's without the path tracing or even ray tracing. But anyway, let us move on along. So, first, when we go in on most of these games, I'm going to try just native real quick on high, just to see what it can do. But I'd recommend most people just use DLSS. I don't think most of these games can even hit playable FPS. Although I think this is one of the few ones that can. I think all the other ones pretty much need it, no matter what. This one, I think, still gets very playable FPS without it, like 80 or something like that. But hey, tested a bunch of systems and stuff, so I could be wrong. Let's hop in and let's go make sure. So, here we are in the game. Sorry, it looks like a red-dyed horror film, but even though I have HDR off in the game and I don't have HDR on or auto HDR or anything like that, it still decided, hey, I'm gonna record like HDR is on. And I was like, okay. Well, I guess the FPS is the only thing that's mostly important anyway, but I was about right, 80 FPS or so. But let's get into town. I think this game still does have like a little like frame time skip every now and again. Though I do feel like they're less prevalent when you're going around in just DLA mode. Once you turn on DLSS, I feel like it gets a little bit more frame time spikes. But yeah, you'll have to forgive me, I might mispronounce words and whatnot. I've been smoking some 31% THC weed, and I also ate a gummy about 30 minutes ago.
Welcome.
It's one of those ones that's like super overpowered.
What's all this talk I'm always hearing about?
Like the guy told me, be careful with these. Like one will probably do you. And I'm like, oh man, I've got such a high tolerance, I doubt it. I'll probably need like 4 or 5. And he's like, no, don't. Anyway, let's turn on some quality DLSS now. And now I'm kind of glad I only listened to him. It's still nothing like the brownie. I remember having this brownie this one time where my friend did not tell me I was only supposed to eat half. And he didn't know he was only supposed to eat half the time either. We both ate it, and we both had hilarious experiences. I remember I think I ended up like falling asleep, well, like almost like just after getting done peeing, thank God, not what during. And I remember waking up in the bathtub like, huh. So that's what happens when you like have way too much weed. But hey, I'll take that over almost any of the other shit that happens on any of the other hardcore drugs. I'm just not into that shit. Little weed's all I need. Don't like cigarettes, don't like beer or alcohol. Definitely no hard drugs, no shrooms, none of that. Just give me a good old weed. But yeah, see what I mean? I feel like the frame times, you just got like a little bit more choppy. Nothing that'd be like, oh my god, unplayable. I feel like most people wouldn't even notice it without this frame time doohickey. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and move on? So, here's the settings we're gonna run. I had to run back and get these. Somehow I forgot to grab them. I thought I recorded them. I even went through just like this, but I guess I just forgot to hit the button combo, but it's getting late. And boy oh boy is that gummy kicking in. But anyway, let's go get ourselves some gameplay. Well, here we are in the game. Sorry that this also looks like some weird horror game filter, but it decided too that it wanted to record HDR, even though I had auto off, and I'm pretty sure I turned it off in game too, and I don't even think I had it on the PC at the point that I did this, so somehow it magically turned it on. Or what likely happened is I thought I turned it off on the computer, and this game doesn't care about auto or anything. It's like, oh, it's on your computer? Well, I don't care, it's on. Well, recording or something anyway. But yep, it can't quite stay above 60, even on just high settings. Alright, let's also kick on like I did on the other ones. Let's kick on a little upscaling. Where was that? Ah, here we go. Quality. Apply. Here we go. And there we go. We should be good now. Just barely. And you can obviously turn it down. But you gotta be careful with upscaling. Sometimes you get to a point where you start, even with a CPU like this, running into CPU bottlenecks and have less than stellar results with stutters and what have you. So I generally try to just stay at quality or balanced. Every once in a blue moon I'll have to put it on performance if I want to use like path tracing or something in a game where it actually makes a pretty significant difference. Because I want to gain some FPS back, and I don't know, I still just don't generally like frame gen in most of these games. I've tested it in some circumstances where it wasn't completely horrible, but... Hey, I got it a little bit. Actually, you know what? I should just change over to keyboard and mouse. I don't know why I'm playing with a controller. Oh good, I did. I don't remember that I did that. I figured I was just gonna suck and never be able to do anything. It's not like I can hit perfectly, but...
What's over there?
He keeps throwing his damn axe at me. I swear they're more accurate with that axe than I am shooting with the damn, like, gun sometimes. Oh shit, they actually got me? Well, I'll be damned. Well, you know what? I'm gonna shoot you a lot. Still don't have a lot of life, so I gotta be a little careful. Could just healed, but... So here we go. Here's the settings we're going to try first. We'll try it, you know, native first, which probably won't go the best. I think in town anyway, we drop under 60 at least once. No frame gen. It almost tricked me. We were getting like 120 FPS, and I didn't notice that was on. So I was like, oh, what the fuck? They must have updated this. This is doing like way better than all the other ones. I mean, I know it's a 5090 and everything, but geez, I don't remember this. But then I know it's frame gen, and I was like, ah, okay, that makes sense. But in any case, I think that is probably more than good enough. I'd say it's about time to jump on in. So here we are in game. And it does drop down to like 54, so you can't say it stayed at 60 the whole time, but besides that drop, I don't think it does drop anymore. But in any case, this is also with no ray tracing or anything. There's very few games I actually use that on. This was not one that it was really worth it. It added way too much stutter. I liked the way it made water look and whatnot, but I still didn't think it was worth it, so I decided nope. Actually, shoot, no. I think if I go that way, it takes me down to the cave system. I want to go back out into that same, like, field that I always go into with this game. Because I have not gotten very far in it, unfortunately. I like the game, but this is just not one that... Well, I think my friend Nick's into it, but... I think that's long past now. I'm sure he's moved on to another game. I'm sure he still got his character and could help me out if I really needed help, but this is more of that game you want to play with your friends and stuff. I don't feel like it's probably that fun all by your lonesome. Although I could still have fun, but it does make killing monsters take forever. Alright, now let's go turn on some quality DLSS as I run myself into a wall. And I should have run back into town, but I completely forgot. I was kind of curious to see if we could stay over 60. Even there, but at least out here, we do fine now. But even the mighty 5090 needs some help from upscaling in most of these modern games. At least ones that are like this. And I still think this one's the worst culprit, because it's not like it's the worst looking game in the world, but it definitely isn't like a super looker either. Even with the high-res texture pack. I didn't nerf it. A lot of the people I've noticed like test this game with that off and like with lower settings, and they don't show the setting screen. And I was like, look at how bad this game looks. But no. Even with pretty decent high-ish settings, I don't think it's the best. I think a great looker. It's not the not the worst looker, but definitely not like, oh my god, this thing is like, I gotta tell everybody how great the graphics look, especially compared to the other two. Not that they're crazy either. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, alright guys, that's a wrap for this video. And after getting to the end, I don't know. From my point of view, I would say Monster Hunter Wilds still loses. Because in my opinion anyway, and this is just my opinion, I think it looks the worst since we did pretty much all the games at high settings, on this PC anyway. I think it got the least amount of FPS, and I think it had the most stutter, especially in town. I don't know what it was like. I should have ran back into town once I turned DLSS on to see if we could stay over 60 in town. But I doubt it. And I don't know. This is the very beginning of the game too. There could be places further out where you just don't even get 60 with my settings there, even with DLSS, because it's not like I had a big team with me taking down a big monster, which is kind of the big point of this game. But regardless, that's just my opinion. I'd say Borderlands 4 was in the middle, and I think some updates helped it, because it seemed a lot better than even when I beat it not too long ago. And then I would say the one that wins is The Outer Worlds 2. Even though it's still not the most optimized game in the world, at least it even runs on the Steam Deck somewhat. It's an almost playable experience there, where the other two, especially Monster Hunter Wilds, were hell no. No way in hell. So that's at least cool. And everything was, except for Monster Hunter Wilds again, was pretty playable on this Ally. Heck, that's the only one that was just like, wow, we're even dropping under 30. And it's not like I was that ridiculous at setting. And maybe you could barely stay above 30 if you cranked everything down to low. But I think it's one of those CPU intensive games where I found that when you did that, it still dropped under 30 in town and whatnot. So I was like, ah, shit. But in any case though, that's all for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Want to try something a little different. And until the next video, peace out, guys.